for Life by Jordan Peterson. And I'd like to discuss a sentence that I read in the book so far. I'm on the chapter Rule 4. And I'm just going to read the sentence and we will have a quick discussion. We'll see where this conversation goes. This is something that I found very challenging when I read it. And so it'd be great to see what your perspective is on it. So I'm going to read this.
Look forward to it.
Okay. Dare instead to be dangerous. Dare to be truthful. Dare to articulate yourself and express, or at least become aware of, what would really justify your life. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about that. And as you're thinking about it, I'm just going to give you some context of rule number 4. Rule number 4, the title of the chapter is called Compare Yourself to Who You Were Yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So that is rule 4.
Fantastic. No, again, Jordan Peterson has written this book to really assist people predict, specifically men. These rules are to allow men and boys to have some guidelines. He really, in my reading of it, he feels that society has abandoned men. In the past, there used to be the Cub Scouts. There used to be organizations to assist young men to really create value systems for themselves. So when I read it, I actually really liked that. And the quote that you talked about, I really have a feeling it's about tapping into your inner bravery to speak up, your inner bravery to put it on the line, to do your best, to be your best. And the comparison, it's not about comparing yourself to someone online or YouTuber or somebody externally. No, you compare yourself to yesterday. Did you live fully? Were you brave? Did you speak up? Did you make a difference? Did you improve? And those are the guidelines I have a feeling that Jordan's really suggesting is a daily account. And it comes back to one of his favorite ones, is making your bed. Do you start your day by a win in the columns, by making your bed? It's not dependent on anybody except yourself. You get up, you make your bed, you've achieved something, you've checked something off, you've put something in place to allow future to actually be better off. And so that's how I see it. How did you see it, or what triggered something in you, Sueanne?
I'm still curious about the words that he used in the phrase. So when you think dare to be dangerous, what level of dangerous is he referencing? Because that interpretation can be taken in so many ways. So from your perspective, from a male perspective, what is that level of dangerous that he's referring to?
I do believe it's dangerous is stepping outside of your comfort zone. And so the degree of danger is if there is somebody that is in danger, would you go and help that person who's falling down? Would you tackle somebody who might have just stolen something from an elderly lady? And so that danger is being alert, being present, and being willing to put it on the line. And that's the danger that I'm feeling he was referring to. And it is something that I believe is really the best of a person, is when they're willing to put it all on the line. And in sports, that's what we talk about. And young people, when they're playing sports, leave it all on the field. Do your best. Push yourself to the limit. Leave it all out there. No regrets. And I have a feeling that's what he's referring to there. So there's a higher level, the higher choice that we can take. And it's not about being driven by fear. It's not being driven by doubt. It's not about excuses. It's about making choices to be the best you can be.
So when he then says, dare to articulate yourself, are you seeing that is a choice that men are making? Because when I read that sentence, dare to articulate yourself, men are not really encouraged to talk about a lot of personal things. They are more comfortable building the image of, yes, I'm leaving it on the field. But when you say leaving it on the field, what are they leaving out? When you say dare to articulate yourself, because that's really the question. It's great that you're going to, exhaust all your energies and say, you know what, we went to battle to get this account or this business and so forth. But that's an image.
Actually, when he talks about dare to articulate, it's to speak up. And so, yes, boys and men are often not encouraged to speak up. Yet, again, for me, what was triggered, if you witness somebody being bullied, are you going to speak up or are you going to be turning the way? So, that is a way to speak up, have your voice heard, have an opinion. Speak up, because when you speak, it creates a vibration where you are expressed, and then you're able to recalibrate. By keeping the thought in the brain, it just gets lost in all of the thoughts, in all of the monkey mind movements. Whereas when you speak it, you can then refine it, you can write it down, you can have greater awareness. And so I believe he's inviting men to articulate it. He's inviting men, when I heard it and read it, he's inviting you to write poetry. He's inviting you to write a journal. He's inviting you to take that voice in your mind and make it into alchemy. That's what I'm feeling he's inviting men to do, is to don't wallow in loneliness in your mind, express it and ask other people their feedback so that it allows you to have greater connection with your inner voice.
And why is he encouraging that, do you feel?
Or because in his experience as an analyst, as a psychoanalyst, as a therapist, he is seeing that many people, particularly men, boys, have not been nurtured in a way that they can have communication, where sometimes they're being shut down. And so when you're talking about abuse, when you're talking about fear, when you're talking about doubt, when you're talking about social media, there's so many places where people are being shut down. And he, in that chapter, I believe, is really inviting people to discover, perhaps it's even an art form. It's a
But
science.
if you're saying that men are not comfortable communicating, what is going to help them get to that place of, yes, I'm going to speak my truth and get comfortable about speaking my truth and not worry about what comes after? Why is that still difficult for men?
Well, it's not only difficult for men right now. I believe that in many areas, with particularly in social media, is that when you speak up, there is an expression in Australia, New Zealand, the tall poppy syndrome. The poppy that sticks up gets smashed down. And so that's one of the things that men and women right now are finding very difficult. The whole bullying movement is something that is horrendous. People are committing suicide because they're being bullied. And so that's what was being triggered for me when I was reading the chapter. And I have really invited people to speak up and to be heard and share their story. And this is, I think, part of what he's encouraging people, because that's what he does too. Is one of his most popular products is a journal. So he asks questions, so people start writing, and by writing and expressing, they can actually discover what's going on in their mind instead of feeling alone by themselves. And so I believe that this is one of his ways to encourage people to voice up, speak their truth, find their truth, explore the opportunity to articulate and communicate.
So why do you feel he's stressing the importance of not comparing yourself to yesterday?
Well, no, actually, I believe, if I'm not, it's okay to compare yourself with yesterday. Don't compare yourself to people outside of yourself. So you are the benchmark. Your behaviors yesterday, if you didn't make your bed yesterday, did you make your bed today? if you exploded because you're angry yesterday, next time were you able to not take on the anger and you were able to deal with it differently? So that's the benchmark, being the best you, not comparing yourself to Elon Musk and feeling that you failed in all these different areas and therefore life's not worth it. That's what I believe is asking you to not keep an external focus, really explore the internal focus and be kind and to be nice and to write nice things and to be articulate and to be well defined in your messaging.
So
And
do you
that's a
feel,
skill. And that's a skill.
Mhm.
So he's offering the opportunity to practice and to experiment and to find your voice, because that's also what he's referring to in being courageous. Because if you've never done it, don't expect yourself to be perfect at the beginning. It actually, at the beginning, you might be pretty lousy at it. And so
why do you equate it to it being a skill if it's something that we all feel innate in terms of this is my voice and I don't want to be ridiculed for speaking what I truly feel. Are you equating it to a skill?
because I believe it's something that can be developed. I think it's there are tools, there's approaches. When you're talking about, I don't want to be ridiculed, that's probably what people are hearing in their inner voice, as opposed to practicing it enough so that little voice that says, you're going to be made fun of, you're going to be mocked. No, it's going to be, breathe into that, dance with that. So those are the skills that I'm referring to, the practice that's required, so that little voice goes, you're going to do well, you're going to do great, as opposed to you're going to fail, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're an idiot, which gets reinforced when we're traumatized as children. And those patterns play out repetitively throughout our whole life unless we learn to master, to skillfully deal with fear and doubt and anxiety, which can be taught and it can be practiced and it can be explored. And so that's why I'm saying I believe it's a skill.
Is this related to self-esteem?
There's the two components: self-esteem, self-confidence. They're intertwined. And speaking up, again, a young person who's always told by parents to shut up. Oh, children are to be seen and not heard. And like, it's not just the words, it's the tone, and it's the dismissal. And it's just like, so the kid goes away and it doesn't feel comfortable speaking with adults. And that gets passed on, legacy, that's generation to generation. And so these are patterns that we can interrupt them, yet it does take an alertness, a consciousness, a curiosity to let them go. Yet you will see that that's, if you go and see some of the things about abuse and different types of addictions, they tend to be passed on generation to generation. And that's something that occurs. And so that's one of the things that I do believe this book addresses. And it does invite men, boys, mothers, fathers to talk about it. And I really enjoyed this chance to share some ideas with you today, Sueanne. And thank you so much for asking.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Okay, this is the final question before we close things off, and you can give your closing statement. Why do you feel young boys and men in general still find it difficult to be dangerous and to dare to articulate who they truly are?
It comes down, the word that you're triggering for me by asking the question is practice. Is that safe practice hasn't necessarily been nurtured. So there probably is a degree of fear, a degree of uncertainty. And faced with fear and uncertainty, we have a choice. There will tend to be fight, there will tend to be flight, or there will tend to be freeze. And so by not having the opportunity to practice the situations that can lead to this, most people will freeze.
Mm.
And or they'll avoid it. And that's one of the things that you see with people who avoid public speaking. They may have had one trauma when they were younger, they may have been embarrassed, they may have been humiliated, and they never want to do it again. And
Mm.
so if they do practice it in an encouraging, inspiring, uplifting environment, they can develop the skills and let go of that trauma. So that's where I believe that many men and boys, if they've been in an environment where they were told to shut up or to don't speak your mind, or uh, children are to be seen and not heard, or respect totally your adults. Yet maybe you've been abused, or maybe you've been beaten, or maybe you've been picked on, or maybe you've been embarrassed. There's going to be a trauma there. And so part of this is to really explore the experiences and then have the courage to face it, because you're going to be facing your own demons here. It's been triggered externally, yet you live it internally over and over and over and over. And so that's where the invitation is to do some approaches, to have some conversations where you're able to speak and be heard. And maybe if you can find a way to have good feedback, constructive feedback, helpful feedback, you'll learn to enjoy the process of communication.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. This is one of many conversations that we're going to have because, as I said, this book is very interesting. It is written for an audience of men. And so at some point, I'm sure once I've completed it, I'll have some perspectives to share with you as I go through it. But it is a very interesting perspective that I'm seeing from his lens.
It's fantastic. It's been just amazing to watch his superstar success, as this book is one of the first books that were written for men by a man to teach a man how to be a really caring, compassionate, and articulate and brave man. And it's fascinating because on one side, the men have just rallied behind it and made it a super bestseller. On the other side, he's actually had a lot of people that have taken him to task. They've referred him recently to being a Nazi leader. He is now being cartoonized. His book is being used as a cartoon where it's forcing people to make their bed, and it's being extremely aggressive in its pictorial communication in a comic book. And so he's polarized a part of the North America and probably Europe also. Yet when I read it, the messages and the stories were quite eye-opening. And he uses a lot of experience from his psychological background, particularly focused on European psychology. I did notice he doesn't have a lot of influence of Lao Tzu or Confucius or the Asian influences in philosophy. Yet that's where, again, his specialty training has come from, mainly from Europe. And so
Okay.
I look forward to further conversations. Thank you very much for the questions. And I hope if anyone's been watching today, they've picked up maybe a thought or a feeling. And really, we do invite you to start journaling, perhaps some poetry. And if you have a comment, please put it down below in the comment section. Hit that like. And if you got a question about something that irked you or really uplifted you about Jordan Peterson's book, please let us know, and we may bring it up in a future discourse. Thank you, Sueanne.
Thank you.